In the grand and opulent halls of the royal palace, a strange silence lingered over one corner. The room was alive with murmurs and laughter as dignitaries from across galaxies gathered for an interstellar summit. Yet amidst all this vibrancy, there sat a woman no one dared to approach. Her name was Limera, a humanoid alien with shimmering purple skin that seemed to shift like amethyst under the light. She wore robes spun from threads of silver and gold, yet it wasn't her appearance or regal demeanor that kept others at bay. It was her scent. Limera's scent had been described in many ways by those who caught even a whiff. Sharp, metallic, otherworldly. Some claimed it reminded them of rusted steel after rain. Others likened it to burnt spices mixed with ozone. Whatever the description, it was clear that her aroma did not sit well with most beings present. And so, despite being seated near the center of the banquet table, a place reserved for important figures, she remained alone. No one chose to sit beside her. The human delegation arrived late, their ship delayed due to unforeseen technical issues. Among them was Roderick Vance, a man known more for his curiosity than his diplomatic skills. He wasn't tall or particularly imposing, but his eyes carried a spark of mischief that made people either love him or find him insufferable. As he entered the hall, he scanned the scene before him, taking note of the empty seat next to the striking purple figure. Without hesitation, Roderick approached and slid into the vacant spot beside Limera. The room fell silent for a moment, every pair of eyes turning toward him. Whispers began to ripple through the crowd. "What is he doing?" someone muttered nearby. Another voice chimed in. "Doesn't he know about her smell?" Roderick ignored the stares and leaned slightly toward Limera. With a warm smile, he said softly, "You remind me of home." For a brief second, Limera froze. Her large, almond-shaped eyes widened in surprise, and then narrowed suspiciously. "Home?" she asked, her voice smooth but tinged with skepticism. "Your species does not share my scent profile. How could I possibly remind you of your origin?" He chuckled, leaning back comfortably in his chair. "It's not just the scent itself," he explained. "It's what it evokes. You see, where I come from, we have these storms. Magnetic storms that sweep across the plains, filling the air with electricity and iron dust. They're wild, unpredictable, and utterly beautiful. Your presence, it feels like standing on the edge of one of those storms." Limera tilted her head, studying him intently. There was something genuine in his words, something unguarded. Most humans were predictable, often too eager to mask discomfort with polite lies. But Roderick seemed different. She sniffed delicately at the air between them, catching traces of his own scent, earthy, faintly sweet, and oddly comforting. "And you do not find my fragrance displeasing?" she asked, still cautious. "Displeasing? No," he replied earnestly. "Unusual, yes, but isn't unusual wonderful? Life would be awfully dull if everything smelled like flowers and fresh linen." A flicker of amusement crossed her face, though she quickly masked it. "Your perspective is refreshing," she admitted. "Most avoid me entirely." "Well, most don't know what they're missing," Roderick quipped, raising his glass in a mock toast. "To magnetic storms and daring choices." Despite herself, Limera found herself smiling. It was small, barely noticeable, but it was there. For the first time in years, she felt less like an outsider and more like someone worth knowing. As the evening wore on, conversations around the table grew livelier. Ambassadors exchanged stories of their homeworlds, some boasting of technological marvels, while others recounted tales of ancient traditions. Roderick listened intently, occasionally chiming in with questions or observations that surprised everyone, including himself. His knack for finding common ground between vastly different cultures became apparent, earning him nods of approval from several delegates. Meanwhile, Limera watched him closely. She had lived centuries longer than any human, yet here was this mortal, navigating the complexities of interstellar politics with ease. When dessert was served, a dazzling array of crystalline fruits and liquid nitrogen-infused confections, she decided to test him further. "This treat," she said, gesturing to the plate before them, is harvested from the cliffs of my world. Its flavor changes depending on the emotions of the eater. Are you brave enough to try it? Roderick raised an eyebrow, intrigued. Brave or foolish? Either way, I'm in. Picking up a shard of translucent pink fruit, he popped it into his mouth. His expression shifted rapidly, from delight to confusion, then to mild panic as tears welled up in his eyes. Laughter erupted around the table, and Limera couldn't help but join in. It tastes like regret, he gasped, wiping his cheeks. Regret for eating whatever this is. She laughed harder, the sound rich and melodic. Perhaps you regret sitting beside me now? Not a chance, he shot back, grinning despite the lingering bitterness on his tongue. If anything, I regret not bringing snacks from my side of the galaxy. Their banter drew attention, and soon others joined in, asking Roderick about Earth and its customs. He spoke animatedly, describing festivals where firecrackers lit up the night sky and foods so spicy they left grown men crying. Limera listened quietly, fascinated by the vividness of his descriptions. Despite their differences, she felt a connection forming, a thread of understanding woven through shared moments. But not everyone was pleased by this newfound camaraderie. Across the table, Ambassador Varnock of the Zorathian Empire scowled. A towering reptilian creature with scales that glinted like obsidian, Varnock harbored deep disdain for humanity. To him, they were reckless children playing with forces beyond their comprehension. Seeing one of them cozying up to Limera, a respected elder of the Council of Worlds, only fueled his contempt. When the meal concluded and guests began dispersing, Varnock intercepted Roderick as he prepared to leave. "Human," he growled, his forked tongue flicking menacingly. "Do not mistake hospitality for acceptance. Your kind has no business meddling in affairs above your station." Roderick met the ambassador's glare calmly. "Funny," he said, scratching the back of his neck. "I thought diplomacy was about building bridges, not burning them." Varnock's tail lashed angrily. "Watch your step, Vance. One wrong move, and you'll find yourself unwelcome everywhere." With that, the Zorathian stalked off, leaving Roderick to ponder the thinly veiled threat. Before he could dwell on it too long, however, Limera appeared at his side. "Ignore him," she advised, her tone firm. "Varnock thrives on intimidation, but his bark is often worse than his bite." "Easy for you to say," Roderick replied. "You've got centuries of experience dealing with types like him. Me? I'm flying by the seat of my pants here." Limera placed a hand on his shoulder, her touch surprisingly gentle. "Then perhaps it is time you learned to fly higher." Over the following days, Roderick found himself spending more time with Limera. She introduced him to the intricacies of galactic etiquette, teaching him how to read subtle cues in posture and pheromone shifts. In return, he shared stories of Earth's history, its triumphs and failures, and the lessons humanity had learned along the way. Their bond deepened, built on mutual respect and a shared sense of humor. One afternoon, as they strolled through the palace gardens, Limera paused beneath a canopy of bioluminescent trees. "Tell me, Roderick," she began, her gaze distant. "Why are you truly here? Not as a diplomat, but as a person." He hesitated, considering her question. "Honestly, I guess I wanted to prove something, to myself, maybe to others too. Humans have always been seen as the newcomers, the ones who stumble into things without fully understanding them. I wanted to show that we can adapt, learn, contribute." "And have you succeeded?" she pressed. "I think so," he said slowly. "But I also realize now that success isn't just about proving ourselves. It's about connecting with people, with ideas, with possibilities. Like how I connected with you." Limera smiled faintly, though sadness lingered in her eyes. "Connections can be fragile things, Roderick. Be careful not to let pride blind you to their value." Her words stayed with him long after their walk ended. That evening, during another formal gathering, tensions reached a boiling point. An urgent matter had arisen concerning a disputed territory on the edge of Zorathian space. Tempers flared as accusations flew, and Varnock seized the opportunity to challenge Earth's involvement in the negotiations. You dare claim neutrality? He sneered, pointing a clawed finger at Roderick. Your planet benefits from trade routes established by our empire. Without us, you would starve. The room went quiet, all eyes turning to Roderick. He stood, his expression calm but resolute. Earth may benefit from trade, Ambassador, but we also bring innovation and cooperation to the table. We aren't parasites, we're partners. If you can't see that, then perhaps it's your vision that needs adjustment. Gasps rippled through the assembly. Even Limera looked startled by his boldness. Varnock bristled, his chest expanding as he prepared to retaliate. But before he could speak, a loud crash echoed through the chamber. The massive crystal chandelier above them swayed violently, sending shards raining down. Pandemonium erupted as guests scrambled for cover. Amid the chaos, Roderick spotted movement near the entrance, a shadowy figure slipping away unnoticed. Instinctively, he gave chase, weaving through panicked crowds and dodging falling debris. Behind him, Limera called out, urging him to stop, but he pressed on, driven by a gut feeling that something bigger was at play. The figure led him to a secluded corridor, where they finally turned to confront him. What Roderick saw stopped him in his tracks. A humanoid shape cloaked in darkness, their features obscured except for glowing green eyes. You shouldn't have followed, the stranger rasped, raising a device that pulsed with ominous energy. Roderick raised his hands slowly, buying time to think. Who are you? What do you want? Instead of answering, the figure lunged forward, forcing Roderick to dive aside. The chase resumed, leading them deeper into the labyrinthine palace. Each twist and turn brought new dangers: locked doors, security drones, and traps designed to keep intruders out. Yet somehow, Roderick managed to stay close, determination fueling his every step. Eventually, they reached a hidden chamber filled with ancient machinery humming softly. The stranger stopped, turning to face him once more. This ends here, they declared, activating the device. A blinding flash engulfed the room, and when Roderick opened his eyes again, he found himself staring at a holographic map of the galaxy. Lines crisscrossed the stars, marking territories, alliances, and zones of conflict. At the center of it all was a blinking red dot: Earth. What is this? Roderick demanded, stepping closer. The truth, the stranger replied cryptically. And now you must decide whether to protect it, or let it destroy you. Roderick stared at the holographic map, his mind racing to process what he was seeing. The red dot blinking over Earth wasn't just a marker. It pulsed with urgency, as though warning of an impending catastrophe. Around it, intricate webs of connections linked various factions, some familiar from the summit and others unknown. Lines of influence stretched across galaxies, revealing hidden agendas that had been carefully concealed beneath layers of diplomacy. What does this mean? Roderick asked, his voice tight with tension. Is Earth in danger? The stranger hesitated, their glowing green eyes flickering like embers. Danger is inevitable, they said cryptically, but knowledge can tip the scales. You've already begun forging bonds where none existed before, bonds stronger than treaties or trade agreements. Before Roderick could press further, the sound of hurried footsteps echoed down the corridor outside. Limera appeared, her violet skin gleaming faintly in the dim light. Her expression softened when she saw him, unharmed but hardened again as her gaze shifted to the stranger. Who are you? Limera demanded, stepping protectively between them. Her stance radiated authority, and for the first time, Roderick noticed the subtle shimmer of energy coalescing around her hands, a defensive mechanism he hadn't realized she possessed. I am no enemy, the cloaked figure replied calmly. I am a guardian of truths too dangerous to remain buried. Truths your companion now shares. Limera turned to Roderick, concern etched into her features. What has happened here? He gestured toward the hologram. This shows something about Earth. Something big. They won't tell me exactly what, but it's not my place to explain, the stranger interrupted. That burden falls to you too. With that, they activated another device on their wrist, vanishing in a swirl of light and leaving behind only silence. For a moment, neither Roderick nor Limmer spoke. The weight of the situation pressed heavily upon them, yet there was also an unspoken understanding. Whatever lay ahead, they would face it together. In the days that followed, Roderick and Limmer pored over the data left behind by the mysterious Guardian. It became clear that Earth's position in the galactic theater was far more precarious than anyone had realized. Hidden alliances, covert operations, and long-forgotten treaties all pointed to one chilling conclusion. Humanity's rapid ascent had disrupted delicate balances of power, making Earth both a target and a pawn. As they worked side by side, their bond deepened. Late nights spent deciphering codes and analyzing star charts brought moments of levity amidst mounting tension. Roderick joked about how much coffee he'd need to survive another sleepless session, while Limera marveled at his ability to find humor even in dire circumstances. In turn, she shared stories of her own past, centuries filled with triumphs and tragedies, wisdom gained through loss, and lessons learned from failure. One evening, as they sat in a quiet corner of the palace library surrounded by ancient scrolls and glowing datapads, Limera looked up from her work and studied him thoughtfully. "You know," she began, her voice soft, "when we first met, I assumed you were reckless, impulsive. But now," Roderick prompted, leaning back in his chair with a teasing grin. "Now I see that recklessness isn't always a flaw. Sometimes, it's courage wearing a different mask." Her words caught him off guard, stirring emotions he hadn't fully acknowledged until now. He reached out impulsively, covering her hand with his own. "And sometimes," he said quietly, "courage comes from knowing someone believes in you, even if they smell like magnetic storms." She laughed, the sound warm and genuine, and for a fleeting moment, the looming threat seemed distant. They allowed themselves this small reprieve, savoring the connection that had grown between them. Despite their progress, danger loomed closer with each passing day. Ambassador Varnock, emboldened by the chaos surrounding the summit, launched a smear campaign against Earth. Rumors spread like wildfire, painting humanity as opportunistic invaders rather than cooperative partners. Tensions escalated, and soon, delegates began withdrawing their support for Earth's inclusion in key negotiations. Determined to counteract the misinformation, Roderick and Limera devised a plan. Using the evidence they had uncovered, they organized a private meeting with influential members of the Council of Worlds. The goal was simple yet audacious: expose the manipulations behind the scenes and rally allies to Earth's defense. The night before the presentation, Roderick paced nervously in his quarters, rehearsing his arguments and anticipating every possible objection. When a knock came at the door, he opened it to find Limera standing there, holding 2 steaming cups of tea. "You'll wear a hole in the floor if you keep that up," she teased, handing him one of the cups. "Relax. You're ready," he sighed, taking a sip of the fragrant brew. "It's not just about being ready. This is everything for Earth, for everyone back home. If we fail, we won't," she interrupted firmly, "because we're stronger together. Remember that." Her confidence bolstered his resolve, and for the first time in days, he felt a glimmer of hope. Together, they reviewed their strategy one final time, ensuring every detail was accounted for. The following morning, the council chamber buzzed with anticipation. Delegates filed in, whispering amongst themselves about the sudden summons. At the center of the room stood Roderick and Limera, flanked by holographic projections of their findings. As the assembly settled, Roderick stepped forward, his demeanor calm but commanding. "Esteemed members of the council," he began, his voice steady despite the sea of skeptical faces before him. "We stand today at a crossroads, not just for Earth, but for the future of cooperation among our peoples. What you're about to see will challenge assumptions, reveal truths, and demand action. But above all, it will remind us why unity matters more than division." With that, he activated the holograms, unveiling the tangled web of deceit that had undermined trust and fueled conflict. Gasps rippled through the crowd as delegates recognized names, planets, and events tied to their own histories. Some looked ashamed, others furious. Through it all, Limera stood silently beside Roderick, her presence lending strength to his words. When the presentation concluded, the room erupted into debate. Voices rose and fell in waves, opinions clashing like stormy tides. Yet amidst the turmoil, a few voices emerged in support of Earth, voices that grew louder as others joined in. Ambassador Varnock, however, refused to concede. Rising from his seat, he slammed his fists onto the table, his reptilian features contorted with rage. "This is nothing but slander," he roared. "Earth seeks to divide us, to weaken our empire." Before Roderick could respond, Limera stepped forward, her tone icy yet composed. "Your empire thrives on fear and control, Varnock. But the galaxy is changing whether you accept it or not. Humanity offers something rare, the willingness to listen, to adapt, to grow. Will you cling to the past, or will you embrace the possibility of a better future?" Her words struck a chord, and slowly, the tide began to turn. One by one, delegates voiced their support for Earth, pledging aid and collaboration. Even those who remained wary acknowledged the importance of addressing the issues raised. As the session adjourned, Roderick turned to Limera, relief and gratitude shining in his eyes. "We did it," he murmured. "Together." She smiled, though her expression carried a hint of melancholy. "Yes, we did. But this is only the beginning. Greater challenges lie ahead." He nodded, squeezing her hand briefly. "Then let's face them together." Little did they know, the stranger who had set them on this path was watching from the shadows, their green eyes glinting with approval. The road ahead would be fraught with peril, but the bond forged between human and alien had proven resilient enough to weather any storm. And in that resilience lay the promise of hope, for Earth, for the galaxy, and perhaps even for love itself. As the days turned into weeks, Roderick and Limera found themselves thrust deeper into the heart of galactic politics. The victory in the council chamber had been a turning point, but it was only the beginning of a much larger battle. Varnock, humiliated by his public defeat, retreated to the shadows, but not without vowing revenge. His empire began amassing forces along disputed borders, sending thinly veiled threats to any planet considering alliances with Earth. Meanwhile, the mysterious stranger reappeared sporadically, leaving cryptic messages that hinted at an even greater threat looming on the horizon. "The balance shifts," they warned during one such encounter. "Prepare for what comes next." "What exactly is coming next?" Roderick demanded, frustration evident in his voice. "Every time we think we've solved one problem, another pops up." The stranger regarded him coolly. "That is the nature of change, human. Stability is an illusion. What matters is how you adapt, and who stands beside you when chaos strikes." Limera placed a reassuring hand on Roderick's shoulder. "They're right," she said softly. "We can't control everything, but we can face it together." Her words steadied him as they always did. Over time, their partnership evolved into something more profound, a shared purpose that transcended species, lifespans, and worlds. They became inseparable, navigating crises both political and personal with a harmony neither had expected nor fully understood. One fateful evening, as they walked through the palace gardens under a sky painted with twin moons, Limera stopped abruptly. She turned to Roderick, her luminous eyes searching his face. "Do you ever wonder," she began hesitantly, "if fate brought us together for reasons beyond diplomacy?" He chuckled, though there was a nervous edge to it. "Fate? I'm not sure I believe in destiny. But if there's some cosmic force out there playing matchmaker, I'd say it has terrible timing." She smiled faintly, but her expression remained serious. "Perhaps it isn't about timing. Perhaps it's about trust. About finding someone willing to see past differences, to see you." Roderick felt a lump form in his throat. He had spent so long focusing on the mission, on protecting Earth, that he hadn't allowed himself to fully acknowledge what Limera meant to him. Now, standing beneath the shimmering moons, he realized how empty his life would feel without her. "I don't know if I believe in fate either," he admitted, taking her hands in his. "But I do know this. Wherever this path leads, I want you beside me. Not because you remind me of home, but because you are home now. Tears welled up in her eyes, something he had never seen before, and she pulled him into an embrace. For a moment, the weight of the galaxy seemed to lift, leaving only the warmth of their connection. Their newfound closeness fortified them as they faced the greatest challenge yet. Varnock launched a surprise attack on a neutral trade hub, framing humanity for the destruction. Panic spread across the galaxy, with many calling for Earth's immediate expulsion from interstellar affairs. The Council convened in emergency session, and once again, all eyes turned to Roderick and Limera. This time, however, they were prepared. Using intelligence gathered from the stranger's clues, they exposed Varnock's deception, revealing evidence of his empire's covert operations. The truth shocked even the most hardened diplomats, and Varnock's influence crumbled overnight. Yet the victory came at a cost. The fragile peace they had worked so hard to build teetered on the brink of collapse. In the aftermath, the Council proposed a radical solution. A unified coalition led jointly by Earth and key allies, including Limera's people. It was a bold move, unprecedented in galactic history, and one that required immense sacrifice from everyone involved. When the proposal passed, Roderick stood beside Limera on the palace balcony, overlooking a crowd of delegates celebrating below. Fireworks lit up the night sky, casting kaleidoscopic reflections over their faces. "We did it," he whispered, awe in his voice. "Against all odds." "Yes," Limera replied, her tone bittersweet, "but our work is far from over. Change brings growth, but also pain." He nodded, understanding the gravity of what lay ahead. "Then we'll face it together, as equals, as partners, as whatever this is between us." She laughed softly, leaning her head against his shoulder. "Whatever it is, it's ours." Years later, when historians chronicled the events that reshaped the galaxy, they spoke of the unlikely alliance between a human diplomat and an alien elder. They wrote of courage, resilience, and love that defied boundaries. And while Roderick and Limera continued to navigate the complexities of their roles, they never lost sight of what truly mattered: the bond they had forged in the crucible of adversity. On quiet nights, when the pressures of leadership eased, they would return to the palace gardens where it had all begun. Beneath the twin moons, surrounded by bioluminescent blooms, they would sit in silence, content simply to be together. For in the vastness of the universe, amidst storms of uncertainty and tides of change, they had found something rare and precious: a home in each other. And in doing so, they proved that sometimes the smallest connections could bridge the widest divides. The years that followed the formation of the unified coalition brought unprecedented peace and prosperity to the galaxy. Trade flourished, alliances strengthened, and tensions between species began to ease as mutual understanding grew. Amidst this newfound harmony, Roderick and Limera's bond deepened further, evolving into something timeless and enduring. One evening, during a quiet celebration in the palace gardens, a place now imbued with countless memories, they found themselves alone beneath the twin moons. The air was fragrant with blooming flowers, their petals glowing softly like tiny lanterns. It was here, amidst the beauty of nature and the hum of distant stars, that Roderick decided to take a leap of faith. He knelt before Limera, his hands trembling slightly as he held out a small, intricately crafted ring. It shimmered with a blend of earth metals and materials native to her world, symbolizing the union of their two lives. "Limera," he began, his voice steady despite the whirlwind of emotions within him. "You've been my guide, my partner, my home. Will you make this connection official? Will you marry me?" For a moment, Limera simply stared at him, her luminous eyes wide with surprise. Then, slowly, a smile spread across her face, one so radiant it seemed to rival the light of the moons above. "Roderick Vance," she said, her voice thick with emotion, "you have already given me more than I ever thought possible. Of course, I will marry you." Tears welled up in both their eyes as they embraced, the weight of centuries and galaxies melting away in that singular moment of joy. Their engagement became the talk of the galaxy, celebrated by beings from every corner of the cosmos. Never before had such a union occurred, between a human and an alien elder, bridging not just worlds but lifetimes. The wedding itself was a spectacle unlike any other, blending traditions from Earth and Limera's homeworld into a ceremony that felt both intimate and universal. Held in the Grand Hall of the Royal Palace, the event drew dignitaries, friends, and family from across the stars. The room glittered with bioluminescent decorations, while music played by instruments from dozens of cultures filled the air with harmonious melodies. Roderick wore a suit tailored with threads of silver and gold, mirroring the robes Limera had worn when they first met. She, in turn, adorned herself in a gown spun from iridescent fabric that shifted colors with each movement, reminiscent of her shimmering purple skin. Together, they stood before a gathering of loved ones, exchanging vows that transcended language and culture. "I promise to stand beside you through every storm," Roderick declared, his voice clear and unwavering. "To honor your wisdom, cherish your heart, and build a future where our differences are our greatest strength." Limera's response echoed with grace and depth. "I vow to walk with you through all the ages ahead, to share in your laughter and bear your burdens. You have shown me that love is not bound by time or space. It is infinite, just as we shall be." As they sealed their vows with a kiss, the room erupted in cheers and applause. Even Ambassador Varnock, who had since been exiled for his crimes, sent a reluctant message of congratulations, a testament to how far the galaxy had come under their influence. In the years that followed, Roderick and Limera built a life together that balanced duty with serenity. They adopted children from various worlds, creating a family as diverse as the galaxy itself. Each child brought unique perspectives and talents, enriching their household with stories, laughter, and occasional chaos. Their home became a sanctuary, a beacon of unity and love. Though challenges still arose, they faced them side by side, their partnership unshakable. Whether negotiating treaties, mediating conflicts, or simply tending to their garden, they approached everything with a shared sense of purpose and humor. Friends often remarked on how seamlessly they complemented each other. His impulsiveness tempered by her wisdom, her introspection brightened by his optimism. On quiet nights, they would gather their children around the fireplace, sharing tales of their adventures and lessons learned along the way. "Remember," Roderick would say, his eyes twinkling, "the universe may seem vast and intimidating, but it's also full of wonder, and sometimes, the most extraordinary connections happen when you least expect them." Limera would nod, adding, "And never underestimate the power of trust. It can bridge even the widest divides."